Hey, what's up everybody? Justin here to give you another review, and this time this will be a review of the first series of Super Dimensional Macross. During the year 1999, which was of course 11 years ago, a giant spaceship of unknown origins falls from the sky and lays abandoned for a decade while being studied and eventually reconstructed during a period of 10 years. This giant spaceship would be renamed the SDF-1 Macross. Inside, a typical city is constructed. It has shops, homes, the strip, everything. So it feels like you never really left Earth. It can be used as a battleship, and it can also turn into a giant-ass mech. However, as a possible consequence of successfully reconstructing the spacecraft, an unknown alien enemy attacks the celebration of its maiden voyage, resulting in an intergalactic war between the Earth and these aliens who would later be named the Zentrades. Caught in the mix is a young stunt pilot, Ichijo Hikaru, who is also best friends with the SDF-1's Top Gun pilot, Roy Fokker. Because of the situation forced upon him, he is accepted into the military as a Valkyrie pilot, and in addition to his own piloting skills in the circus, he is also under the guidance of his friend Roy on the battlefield. Eventually, other characters will come into his life and be some sort of influence on him, and his life will also impact on others. Such as Lin Minmei, the ship's star idol, as well as the ship's bridge officer, Misa Hayase. The characters themselves are what really drive this show. Hikaru may be an ace, but deep down inside he's still that kid that's growing. He's also discovering love as he's trying to be a man. Roy, his big brother figure, is well confident in his abilities and never second guesses anything. Hikaru will also develop as a pilot or soldier, and he eventually has subordinates assigned to him. Max, one of his men, is a very popular character amongst fans all over the world for his, gentle personality and nerdy looks, but yet, has death-defying piloting skills in the stars. I think he might be the best pilot, in this series. And Minmei is slowly embracing her fame as the ship's star idol, and is torn apart that it keeps her from spending time with Hikaru, who eventually develops a relationship with another woman. Though Gundam was the first to utilize mechs as a military weapon, Macross uses the same concept, but with a completely different approach. Rather than just huge robots, you got transforming fighter jets known as the Valkyries that are introduced. In comparison to Gundam, I thought, the story driving the characters, but with Macross, it's the characters that drive the story. I'm not saying either one is good or bad, but they each successfully approach this in their own respective rights. I'll use an easy example. There is romance in both series. The romance in the Gundam series tends to be very secondary, as well as the characters, and the action tends to be more primary, while with Macross it's the opposite. It's more about the emotional situations, and the action comes across as more secondary. I'd like to explain more, but it'll take some time. Like I said, I'm not saying either one is good or bad, but I think it's overall a good thing, so it helps the series stay distinctable from one another. So to sum it all up, I'll give the story and the characters a 9 out of 10. The art and animation is pretty cool, and thanks to the creator Shoji Kawamori, this guy is just a fucking man and a well-respectable name in the world of robot anime. I wouldn't say the animation was years ahead of its time, but it still stood out. The design of the Macross is very deep and complex and captivating. It has a great sense of size, and the way it's shown with the camera angles makes you wonder how big it really is, and it's just amazing that it is supposed to be the size of a city. When it turns into a mech, it really looks menacing and really has this, and it's really interesting that something that's supposed to house civilians. The Valkyries are pretty sweet themselves. I already explained that they can transform. They can be fighter jets, and they can also be transformed to robots for hand-to-hand combat. Thanks to that special customization, they are also used in space. The engineering of the transformation, I wouldn't say it doesn't look complex, but I figure it makes it an easy toy to transform if you want to sell it that way. The battles are also pretty intense and fun. In comparison to Gundam, where it has lasers and beam saber fights, the fights in Macross are more realistic. The series limits itself to using more reality-based weapons such as bullets and missiles, and outmaneuvering your opponents with agility, as opposed to, using beams and, high-tech armor, high-tech shields, and all that other, badass shit. The bad guys of the Zentradi have an interesting gimmick to them being giants. They tend to have really menacing and intimidating looks, with the leader, just having all these weird-looking bald heads and all these weird features. Just makes him look like evil Nazi color guards or something. The characters are good and have distinctiveness to their designs. Mimi, of course, is stuck with the unrealistic purple hair color, but she's pretty cute. And Misa has a more mature look to her that reflects on her plain personality. And the Captain Global looks like an old warhorse. And Ichijo just has this wild youth look to him, but still has an innocent face. And Max doesn't really look intimidating, but his nerdy looks makes him unassuming, and hey, he can still kick ass and get the girl. And with the character designs, I just like how it really reflects their personalities, like I said before. So even though it's an oldie, you still got a goodie. For the art and animation, it's an 8.5 out of 10. The Japanese version of the voice acting is very well casted. It has veteran Seiyu Kamiya Akira playing Roy Falker. His dark voice gives him a mature sounding to his voice, since he's this role model to not only Hikaru but to his men, but yet still has some lightness to his voice that reflects his laid-back personality. Hikaru Seiyu, Hase Arihido, gives a very teenage sound to him and captivates his qualities where he's still growing up and is trying to understand the world around him, but yet he's someone that is still trying to fight this war, and he does have this other kind of charisma to him, which I really have a hard time explaining. Hayami Sho, who plays Max, brings unique traits to the character by having this serious but yet mellow personality at the same time. While in comparison to his other roles like Burn from Aura Battler Dunbine and Zarbon from Dragon Ball Z, he tends to be more serious. Mari Iijima, who plays Minmay in both the Japanese and the newer dub, is just excellent. Nothing much to add there. This anime helped, jumpstart her music career as well, and she's mostly known as a singer than as a seiyuu. She brings this high-pitched sound to the voice that not only brings out a teenage girl, but this sort of Chinese authenticity to her voice, the same way Shampoo's voice also indicates some sort of accent. Plus, her singing is just excellent and addicting with her songs such as Xiao Bai Lo, which is her biggest hit on the show. But outside of Minmay's songs, which I also will talk about when I get around to reviewing the movie, Do You Remember Love, the opening and ending themes of Macross are excellent pieces of music themselves. Like the opening theme, simply also titled Macross, is amazing in its own right. The singer sounds pretty old school with the tone of his voice, and the opening trumpet sounds something you'd hear in a military march, and goes along with the aerial imagery when transitioned to all the fighting and faster-paced music and singing. And the song Runner has a pretty mellow feel to it. And the background music in general tends to use a lot of trumpets and gives that overall military feel in the midst of battle. So I'll give the music and voice acting a 9.25 out of 10. In the end, in comparison to Gundam, this anime brings a different kind of twist to the military-centered mech genre. Like in Gundam, the series tended to be more about humans fighting each other, while in Macross it is more about aliens versus humans, and there's a lot more elaboration to that relation in the origin of the Zentradi, which would be a spoiler if I get around to that. The series is more lighthearted and more drama-based with the love triangles, but a different kind of coming-of-age story in its own right. Not just for Hikaru, but for Minmay as well. The main cast all have their roles, and the story develops in their own respective ways. Despite some changes when it became Robotech as an early gateway anime over 20 years ago, Golden Harmony still manages to keep, some of its main themes in faith, but this overall great anime with a wonderful story with interesting art and excellent action, with terrific action and music, gets an overall good score of a 9 out of 10. Sorry, I was tired when I did this.